Something after going from Sunday to this morning.
I like a lot of snow. Bring it on.
I don't. And I'm at work.
I like watching it fall, but that's about it. I
Yeah.
don't like getting out in it, and I don't like it sticking around.
Nope, that's
It is a pain in the
You
butt.
gotta
to
move
do
it.
anything in.
move it, move it. Gotta move it before you can do anything else. That's a problem.
On.
But
Think we're ready to rock.
All right.
It's being live streamed on YouTube today. So that way I can go back and look and see make sure I know what everyone says. And then also if anybody's got questions about the meeting or if the paper runs things, people can go back and watch it and just see what was said themselves.
I got a call this morning. I'm ready to run a little late. I was at the barn. Something they read in the paper. I said, well, I don't believe everything's in the paper.
Well, that's true. Sometimes things are put together. In fact, I have a copy of the paper right here.
Oh, you did?
And in the paragraph here where it said, Mr. Whittington said Chew Road, military road, development need to be considered in the comp plan. And then it goes on to say the committee discussed in the overlay district down those roads for some distance. Well, what I said was that those two roads needed attention because they were thoroughfares. And especially 153 was built for to be under actually, I think it need to be traffic restricted. Because military use, if it was to be a security emergency kind of situation. And then 604 is a thoroughfare because of 360 being so congested, people cut through to go to get some of them. Actually stay on Junto to get to Powhite, and some of them go to 288 and so forth. But it is a thoroughfare, and they compared to 360, it's a they're minor thoroughfares, but they so it really doesn't say anything about that. So I'll just give you that as an example.
So guys, what I got here for you, I printed out the vision and goals section of future land use map. We'll start with the vision and goals. That's what we've been talking about the last couple weeks. And that's really the meat of the comprehensive plan. The two, I guess, biggest and probably most impactful parts of it are your goals, policies, and objectives section, and then your future land use map. They guide a lot of what we do. The other parts of it, your demographics and your natural resources and other things, those are a little bit more accessory. They're good informational parts, but they don't guide as much in the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month county operations, like your goals, policies, objectives, and your future land use map do when the county's making decisions and county staff is trying to administer what the two bodies, the planning commission and the board, would like to happen in the county. I've gone through, this is a strike edit version, starting to just edit through the 9 goals and objectives. We talked pretty extensively about goal area 1 and goal area 3 at the last meeting. Skipping over 2, and then we started to get into 4. So what I would like you guys to do is we'll go back through 1 and we can talk about some potential language changes that we see here. And then we'll go through 3 and look at that. And 4, that's what we worked on last time. See what we need to fine tune. And then we can go back to goal 2, ag, forestry, and natural resources, and sort of camp out there today. And if we can wrap up 2, that means we would have gone through and reviewed goals 1 through 4. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 remaining to do the cleanup. As you remember in goal 1, it's community character and vision. And this is where it's goal number 1, and it talks about protecting the rural character and scenic beauty of the county. We talked about some of the challenges to this. Goal 1, strategy A, says establish regulations that work together to protect the scenic, cultural, ecological, and environmental character. And the bottom of the page would say page 19 for this one. Make sure everybody's tracking. So I feel like that's a decent strategy. I don't know if you guys want to make any changes. I didn't note any changes to that one. It says establish regulations that work together to protect the scenic, cultural, ecological, and environmental character of the county's rural and agricultural areas. The county, regulatory wise, has done that through the zoning ordinance. And I think could continue to do that. It's definitely difficult to do development in our rural and ag zoned areas unless a rezoning occurs, which would have to come through you all on the board. So right now, I think that's strategy still a good one to work towards.
Well, I think it is kind of one proper word that might be lacking in there.
All right.
It's to protect the scenic, cultural, ecological, and environmental character. I think that the the economy, the economic, it needs to be part of that, because what really does that is supporting agriculture and forestry. That's what does it, and that is the for that matter, agriculture and forestry is the biggest industry in the state of Virginia by far, and it is big. So
Didn't that kind of fall under cultural though?
So we want to, should we maybe just want to add a strategy that says, support. I mean, really, I guess that's where some of these get a little gray, is because that might be under our economic development area, supporting an ag and forestry businesses, but I also see how it's under your community character. But I could definitely add some language about supporting ag and forestry related operations.
well, even if it had, one word in
Yeah.
in there, I mean, it mentions I mean, this these are businesses,
Mm-hmm.
that's an aspect that's missing.
Businesses on it as a whole, all the businesses.
Well, when you talk about scenic, cultural, ecological, environmental, that's all good, but the businesses, in other words, agriculture and forestry are the big businesses, the big volume of businesses. And that's what you get, protecting your scenic, ecological, environmental, you talk about all those things.
You need those two to protect the other. You
Yeah.
need those two to have the other four.
Yeah,
So add a language referencing ag and forestry.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it does reference it. It says to protect the character of the county's rural and agricultural areas. So I wouldn't want the word agricultural in there again. I mean,
no, I would.
are you just saying stick the word economic in there?
I think.
Economical agriculture areas.
Yeah, economic.
Okay.
While supporting
I was gonna
economic
say-
growth and smart economic growth in a smart way or something like that.
Work together to protect the scenic culture of the economy. I'm not sure about having a lot of anything.
I could nix one of those, Jennifer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can kind of nix one of those.
Scenic,
They're,
cultural, and environmental character.
they're really the same.
Right.
Well, he kind of covers the agricultural and forestry in the next section.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was saying. I feel like agriculture's covered in all of section 2 and. I mean, but if we're just adding the word economic, then.
I could add, I could add economic.
Maybe keep ecological and get rid of environment.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see what
I mean, environmental's not,
overlapping.
yeah, they're basically the same.
All right.
Yeah, ecological and environmental are a little bit redundant.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I say we get rid of environmental and put economic then.
You're right.
All right, how about strategy B? What it formally said was establish clearly defined geographical planning areas that recognize the areas for active, fully served development and agriculture and conservation area preservation. I nixed the active, fully served development and put it as establish clearly defined geographical planning areas that recognize areas for residential development, commercial industrial development, and agricultural and forestry area preservation.
Right, because previously we discussed the fact that residential was sort of left out almost everywhere. I
And,
apologize.
and also the whole active, fully served, we're not gonna, over 20-25 years, we're gonna have to have residential development that's likely not in the sanitary district.
Yeah. Somewhere.
An active, fully served would mean, in my opinion, I was taking that as water sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just put that the board, that the planning commission and board, what this means is that the planning commission and board would have to establish some geographical planning areas that they will in the future be favorable to for rezonings for residential development, commercial industrial development, and then of course ag and forestry. I felt like that kept it straightforward, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, looks good.
I'm
It
good.
was probably worded like that before because kind of the plan was that if we had somebody just outside the sanitary district wanting to develop, that they would be the ones paying to extend the water and sewer system and stuff, and not the county. And I think that's the reason it was worded like that before.
Okay. And then with that being said, that's what's gonna come back around to us and when we review goal area 3, which is development areas,
Right,
we're gonna have to define those.
Yeah.
In this go around. All right?
Yep.
I didn't change the C, designate rural areas, secondary road corridors that are susceptible to continued frontage development. Revise zoning regulations for rural lot development to limit frontage development opportunities. I was a little confused on area C.
Mhm.
There was a lot in there.
I mean, kind of it goes to what Juan was talking about with 153. I mean, that's the secondary road corridor susceptible to continued frontage development, I'm assuming, right? You were
Chula Road and.
Chula and 153.
Okay.
Revise zoning regulations for rural lot development to limit frontage development opportunities.
But how
So
else you gonna preserve the
Right.
country look if you build all the houses right on the road?
I was just reading it.
Yeah, we did that.
So how do we, what does that look like zoning regulation wise though? Like, what does it look like? Did we make people,
I mean, to me, all the houses.
Setbacks?
are
yeah, or do we
pretty
make
hard.
people put more, is it increased setbacks? Is it? Like, do you make people put long driveways in?
I think that was put in there originally make developers build streets back into the land off the road, rather than put all the houses right along
Yeah,
the road.
you want to limit the number of entrances into the road. That's what,
That was the purpose
that's
of
what it
it.
appears with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as you go down to 53, there's houses all along the road anyway.
And most developers don't want to build roads, but I mean, unless you want all the houses right along both sides of the roads down, as you go through the country, you're gonna have to. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's turning those kind of roads into the street. That's what you don't want.
I feel like that kind of clashes with what the county wants on subdividing properties. They don't want a lot of
Access.
easements and private roads seem like.
We don't
That's a
allow
big
private
issue.
roads anymore.
Mhm.
Private roads are not allowed in the county anymore.
Like,
Gotta be built to VDOT specs.
I was like,
That's,
could you allow private roads to get the subdivides off? What we're talking about here, you know,
Yeah, I feel like Bridgefords Mill is the only one even down there.
Didn't we, I mean, didn't our ordinance say
Hidden
no
Valley.
private roads?
it's no private roads in the
just north of Scottsford.
153.
Mhm.
For rural to live out frontage development.
And I lived on that road for 29 years. Does it have a sign that says that?
If it does, it's really small.
So it's like, I can't think of any.
I just feel like that.
The one, I think I might.
I guess for me, if I'm putting this into practice and I'm gonna bring a zoning amendment before you guys, because it says revised zoning regulations. Is that something that we might need to look at the zoning ordinance?
Maybe so, to see how
Yeah,
that is, as how it would affect this.
because that's a pretty
They're not
firm
Too
statement.
big, not as big
It
as.
said staff, it's like revised zoning, but I don't really know what it would mean,
Yeah.
revised. I don't really know.
You're talking 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That paragraph right there, two things comes to my mind.
Okay.
One is down here at Redfield. You got all your houses in the back on both sides. You got a lot for sale up front, company zone for commercial. I think that's great. You want your businesses on 360. Also think about that massive subdivision where you'll remember that Patty Patton was gonna put in.
Over here.
And even though that thing was a massive conversation, the housing was in the back, and she wanted to have the development up front, you know? So if you build yourself like a big subdivision, or Amelia one day will have one, like a Brainerd Mill or something, you would want your businesses
Okay.
On the main.
up close, so you kind of need to have some kind of.
Well, and like the Oak Springs plantation thing, all the smaller lots are in the back with houses, and all the lots along the road are 30-acre lots. Which
Yeah.
Right,
preserves
those
that
setbacks are
rural
big. Yeah.
appearance, having a lot of
Yeah.
open land.
I think you don't want to limit yourself on being able to build anything in certain areas of the county, which might be able to be talked about upon the arise of it,
Right.
but you want your businesses up close to the road and houses off the road, wherever you put it,
Yeah.
however. But whether it's on 153, 681, 604.
And maybe one way to do that is if somebody applies for a subdivision on 360 or 153 or wherever, we limit the number of lots they can put fronting on the highway.
Something
And
like you want the
that
business.
force them to build internal streets.
Well, your developers are gonna look at wanting to put something up. They want the businesses to be seen.
Yeah, and most people don't want to live along it. I mean, that's why,
They
like I'm
don't-
on Hall Street, I mean, people don't want to live right on, you know. Out here, obviously, right now, the kind of housing we have is right on the road. I mean, not right on the road, but you go down 153, and I mean, you're gonna see every single house,
You look
basically.
At Redfield though, I think
But
it's perfect.
Yeah, Redfield, you don't even know
see
it's
a
there.
House is there and companies will sell it and you just build a dentist office, lawyer office, whatever,
Mhm.
you know, professional law. That's ideal. That's kind of a good model, I think, to
Yeah.
have.
Follow.
Yeah,
Or bigger lots, like you said,
Like
like
Oak
Oak
Springs,
Springs,
yeah.
you know?
Or if you limit the number of road frontage lots, and somebody wants road frontage lots, then they're gonna have to make them big lots. And that's where you gotta build. You limit the number of lots, per 50-acre subdivision, you can only have 2 lots fronting on the existing road or something like that.
And basically that would only be in zones
Rural areas.
that are rural
Right,
preservation.
right, up here in town, it would, yeah.
So maybe I'll,
Well, even along, even along 360, what, if you have, several industries, let's say, accessed by one road, that's good plan. So, I mean, every business or industry is not the type that, just wants to be seen. They're wholesale and manufacturing, so forth. So as much as possible, you want, if you're gonna maintain the flow of traffic, you have to limit your entrances into the thoroughfare.
And that's kind of what I was
So,
pushing for, that new industrial area up there by Buddy's, is to have them have one access road, a frontage road in there, so you don't have one access to 360. And I think that's probably a good idea, especially if you got delivery trucks, tractor and trailers, stuff like that. You don't want them pulling out on 360 at every crossover. You want to kind of limit, and which may end up being at some point a stoplight to control the traffic, as long as you have one access.
in some of the past comp plans, we were actually given by people that were working with us, pictures that showed that, and showed, that's what's considered to be good plan to do it.
I mean, you could always do that through the zoning thing, you say for residential or commercial development, no more than 2 lots that have access to the main highway, and that would force them to build an internal street, a frontage road. That concerns me more about the industrial than it does residential, because of the big slow moving trucks that's gonna be pulling out into the road.
all right. All right, item, strategy D says protect views and scenic assets of the Route 360 corridor. Prepare a corridor master plan. We have an overlay district now, so I put update and enhance the overlay zoning district. And site design guidelines for Route 360.
That sounds like that'll work.
We do need to prepare a corridor master plan. That's something that we'll have to work on the next probably 2 to 3 years after this comprehensive plan is updated. And that's something we're gonna have to hire out to a consultant to get a corridor master plan together. And I think that corridor master plan will help us further identify the best areas for development while also identifying the areas we may want to keep scenic. Now, of course, that's one of those things we discussed last time where you're sort of picking winners and losers if you do that, because people that own property in certain places or whatever, if they end up wanting to sell, can we really tell them that we want to keep their field nice because it's one of the nicest views? I think that's something that will be balanced, but
Well, part of it.
thoughts there?
We're gonna have a problem on 360s, that railroad track.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's wanna develop on this side because they don't wanna have to cross that railroad track,
Yep.
even for our apartments, whatever.
Yeah, railroad crossing is gonna cost you about $100,000.
I've heard.
But I'm just saying, that
Yeah.
we've lost half of that volume, half of that land value going down that railroad track. And anybody that owns on the other side is, no matter what it is, it's gonna cost you because a developer's not gonna want do that, and most people don't want to have to worry about, you know.
I want to bring up
Yeah.
this real quick, not to start a big conversation, but the gentleman that called you, I'm not gonna call him names, I told someone called me yesterday also, and he had some very good questions that I couldn't answer, and, just sitting here listening on this thing right here about protecting the views and scenic routes of 360. This gentleman had a question about setbacks, 200 foot. And where do they start from? Center of the road, edge of the ditch, or the VDOT right of way? I didn't know what to tell him.
I would think it started from the edge of the right away.
Okay. All right.
Brady should be the one answering, probably, so you know for sure.
And this,
Where our ordinance is defined is it's the property line.
Okay.
and
So
this is
wherever the
just
property line
his
is.
thought. This guy was as nice as you could be. He's a developer. He's had the opportunity to come close to bringing two businesses in. If it's 200 foot, it's 200 foot, but it just needs to be defined. And the question that I got is, and the question he brought up, and he even said it might be better if it's a case by case scenario, and he gave me these examples. Say I have a piece of property on 360, and I want to develop it. I'm gonna put me a frontage road in. Well, now I've done just decreased my property that I'm able to use because I'm bringing from the edge of the property. Considering your side and your rear setbacks, you could squeeze yourself out of an opportunity to have like a Tractor Supply or something coming. Where if it was from the center of the road, it might be different. He was not lobbying for either way, but he ran into a bad situation where he had to deal with a VDOT right away, and it looked like his property. But it was VDOT right away for future use, or you could have like a turn lane that VDOT has planned, you know? Turn lanes can get kind of wide. And he's saying that you could decrease some of the valuable property on 360 by having a 200 foot setback, say from worst case scenario, VDOT right of way, the edge of the VDOT right of way. It could squeeze you down to where you're not limited. 100 foot would, he was fine with that. He's fine with 200 foot. But he said that he wasn't demanding an answer, but we needed to think about that. And I'm like, you know, that's some pretty good stuff. You could really be squeezing your stuff on 360 down that you couldn't use if you said a 200 foot from the edge of the property line. And not down in the idea of a frontage road, that's great. But how far back off of 360 would your frontage road go? And I know this situation we're talking about down there, you got, you know, half a mile of land back there. But say, just for instance, there was another piece of property somewhere on 360 and you wanted to put a little frontage road, one stem coming out on 360 and have three nice commercial lots. It could cost the county some businesses. He didn't have the answer, but he asked us to kind of kick the can around. Is that the way you kind of got the situation too? He was happy with whatever, just he's gonna play by the rules, but he's been through a really rough situation and got it worked out, and he's just seeing this when he read it in the paper. He was like, you know, we're on the right track, but you want to keep it rural, but also a business wants to be seen. But if you buy some land, you can't just add on to it. You gotta follow your setbacks now. So we could be boxing ourselves into a bad situation.
But see, it'd be hard to say. I mean, 360, the right rate on 360 varies in and out all the time because they get fills or cuts or whatever. And they have, most places it's 148 feet, I think, from right away to right away. Now, it's only like 48 feet from the center of the existing, whatever the existing one lane road of 360, which most of the way through Amelia is the westbound lane. So it's like 48 feet from that. If he were to include a site plan for his development and it showed a frontage road, I would still say the 200 feet would apply from the 360 right away because it's a 360 overlay district. And his frontage road would be a part of that setback in there, I would think. That's the way I would look at it.
I kind of would like to work with anybody trying to bring a business in.
Right.
And each situation could be a little different, you know? How to word this, I don't know. I'm just bringing up what the guy told me. Last meeting, 200 foot sounded great to me. It was all cut straight, dry, simple. You didn't want your businesses right up on the road where you had 360, a sidewalk, and a parking lot. You wanted a little room to have a buffer, keep it rural. But when he brought this to my attention, it's a lot that goes on that we don't really, unless you've been through it, you don't think about it. You don't really know how to handle it. And you still want to keep it rural, but you don't want to. I guess my concern after listening to him talk was you bought a narrow strip of property on 360 that was flat on the other side of the railroad tracks, possibly even had county water and sewage. If you threw that 200 foot setback back, depending upon where you put it at, it might push you back to where you can't fit your business you want on it, and keep your setbacks in the back or something.
But that's what variances are for.
Well, that's what I kind of told him too. But it's just something that we need to think about. And like if you put in a stem road, where would you, I think you should still keep a 360 unless you don't want your business right up on the stem road either, but
Well, if you put in if you go to the edge of the road, you put in a frontage road, say, that still doesn't keep him putting a sign out by 360, a big sign that doesn't show a business there. And then he put in a 50-foot stem road, 50-foot right away there, that he would still only have, be 150 feet from that road back, which is still a pretty good buffer area, 150 feet.
I'm almost at the point I thought about it. He called me yesterday afternoon. I had plenty of time yesterday afternoon, this morning to think about it. We're discussing 20 years. It might not hit us hard right now, but in 15 years it could. And it was last meeting brought up about looking at each situation at its own situation. It might be best to say something like that rather than putting a huge setback in the thing right off the bat and scaring a developer away totally. But that's just a suggestion. I just don't want to deter. And I didn't ever think about it. But you could probably write a book on it. And we're just trying to put everything in the book in one line or one paragraph. So
Maybe the thing to do is do it case by case, but say that a 200-foot setback from 360 is recommended.
I lean on what you
and
say
choose
on that
that-
setback on how 360 goes and all. I had never thought about it.
Right.
And I don't know if VDOT has done plan like future turn lane, I don't know what they got.
For the
So
most
I'm gonna
part,
lay it in your lap on a suggestion that you think would benefit the county the best and still keep it rural and everything else.
I think it's kind of like the solar farm. We had 1,000 feet. That's kind of the max. That's kind of like you got a car out there and you ask $5,000 for it. You can always come down. You can't go up.
Right.
So I'm saying if you start at 200 feet and have a situation in there that once you see the track of property, where it's at, if it's a little less than that, you can compensate it.
Yeah, upon a variance, upon request or something,
Yeah. That's kind of how
Yeah,
well, the property this person brought up was say over here, like from where Herman's Hermit, coming down 360 there.
yeah, we
between-
talked about that.
Between 360 Interstate and the old 360. It's
Oh,
for
the piece
sale.
is
I
for
guess
sale,
y'all have
right.
for sale or somebody has it for
It's
sale.
right there. And
Well, if you go 200 feet off of 360,
Little
this
Tom
way,
Stark property right
Yeah.
there, 360.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought
next to
that
the
up to him
pool.
yesterday. It's like
That's
150 yards to there.
you know,
200 foot off 360.
You got nothing, you
Once
can't
the
put anything there.
setbacks on the back of it to that road, you kind of just.
There's
stop
nothing,
down.
you're right.
Well,
That's a good example.
well, that whole track,
Yeah.
goes all the way through there, comes out over the food line.
Yeah, you go 200 feet in there, you got nothing left.
Yep.
Look,
But you can't go by a particular situation like that and then you've got to do like Larkin says, have it be the 200 feet, then make your exceptions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it,
I think we agree with
No,
that.
You don't take the exception and turn
Right.
it into the.
I think he
Yeah,
was
but-
saying we need to maybe make it more obvious that we accept that. Some developers may look at it and go,
We can't.
It doesn't say anything about variance. I'm
We,
not
we
gonna-
want
Developers
to
don't
talk to
know.
you.
Right.
If you ain't got but
Right.
150 feet, we want to talk to you. Don't
Like,
run away.
they may
Let's
look
see
at
Mr.
it and think,
Brady about it.
You know, we won't work.
The overlay district is 100
There
feet.
are some counties.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So to go to 200, it'd have to go through a zoning amendment.
But what is the 100 foot from?
Right now, it's the way the ordinance reads is it's from the property line.
So
The
that,
property line's in the middle of the road, according to a survey, we would review the survey on record. If it's to the middle of the road, then that's where 100 feet would start.
Mhm.
If it's to the edge of the road or wherever the property line starts. So if you were to, where that would impact somebody is if you were to buy a piece of property and subdivide it and do an access road, and then you made your lots. You yourself, the developer made the lots behind the access road, then the setback would start from the property line of that lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't start from 360.
And the ordinance currently says 100 feet.
It's
Yeah.
100 feet currently.
Okay.
Well, I'm
It's from the
mostly
property line.
thinking, in my mind, businesses rather than
Mhm.
yeah,
houses.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking on the 360 corridor
Right.
For business.
businesses is what I'm thinking, because a turn lane can get, how wide's a turn lane? A decel lane or something? I didn't,
12 feet wide. The pavement's gonna be 12 feet wide.
I didn't know where to start it at or something.
But
And
most places up and down 360, they have enough room to put turn lanes in without widening the right of way.
yeah. The right of way's already there.
Right of way's already there.
so I just think we need to, I don't have this answer, but I think we need to do it to where boom, but don't run away. If you don't fit, come talk to us and let's see if we can't, work it out.
Well, leave it at the 100 feet and just add the language in there that, but 200 feet is preferred. And that's the way the developers know we could, we would like to have 200 feet, but if you can't meet it, you gotta meet the 100 feet.
So where's 200?
You know what I'm saying?
But I think it's better off to put it in at 200 than if you got
Variances
a
out.
variance and you deal with it that way.
That's what the variances are for.
Well, he was very kind and willing to play by any rules, but he just brought up some stuff that he had been.
Well, he'd been through it
Oh,
in
I
the
never.
county next door.
Well, you would have to allow variance if that setback pushed him far enough back that he couldn't build the building he needed or couldn't meet the rear setback. That's what the variance is for. You cannot create a hardship on somebody where they can't use their property.
Yeah.
That's what variance comes into play.
So like,
100 feet with the discussion.
200 feet.
The 200 feet, yeah. But I think that the way this is just, it would impact the 360 overlay district.
you're still trying to keep this rural drive through, you don't want to block a business from being totally seen, pull in there to see if they're open and
Right.
pull back on the road. You want rural when you drive through, but you don't want to make it to where they're so far off the road, you could be limiting where you can build at on 360. Like this piece of property that the Pimpleton's on. It's not that far from, or right there, Ridgefield. It's not, and that's a premier spot to build something. That's a
Yeah.
really nice subdivision, just in between 153. It's not that far from the road to the woods, and I'm assuming the woods is the property.
It's only about an
I
acre.
think it goes back when we used to live there. Originally, Olin Hardy owned that, and he was gonna put some like doctor offices and stuff like that in there, but that never developed.
Our ordinance, zoning ordinance defines setback as the minimum distance by which any building or structure must be separated from the front lot line.
Okay, the front lot.
Lot line, yep.
So the setback on that front lot right there would be what?
Which one?
Right there at Ridgefield.
Whatever from that front line, wherever a survey shows the front lot line is. So if the front lot line was
Say the ditch.
the ditch, yep, then it'd be 100 feet from there.
That's already been rezoned commercial, so I don't know that that's gonna apply.
I was just using it as
It'd
an
be 100 feet
example
from there, from the ditch, let's just say.
That's an awesome place for a business.
Yeah.
And I kind of see where he's coming from. You don't want to narrow this thing up or push it back to where you haven't got enough room to drive around your building in the back, It almost needs to be a case by case.
But I mean, the 100 foot is not unreasonable. We got 100 feet on houses.
100 foot's great.
If you build a house there, you gotta be 100 feet from the property line.
He was fine with 200 foot, but the paper didn't put in it where it came from.
Yeah.
Where did the setback start? That was what provoked the phone call.
It's always started at the right of way line or the property line, as far as I know.
I feel like we have a whole county of prime rural property and character. I feel like most people in the county are okay with developing 360 and making it more conducive to being developed. Like, I think it ought to stay 100 or maybe even 75 or less than 100 be more conducive to business.
And I told him it went to the door of the business, rather than the parking lot. That was the next question he had, is put in it, talking about, can't read everything, believe everything you read.
Goes to instruction.
Hopefully it'll be defined a little bit, thing.
All right, we will. So as far as letter D, protect views and scenic assets of the Route 360 corridor, update and enhance the overlay zoning district. We'll have to continue to work together with the planning commission to determine what update and enhance the overlay zoning district means. All right, letter E.
Well, that's probably gonna be covered. We're gonna have to get a consultant to do revamp the overlay district. That's gonna be covered in that too, probably.
In the
Should be.
corridor master plan, yep. All right, letter E, revise zoning and subdivision development I changed it. It was revised zoning and subdivision application requirements to focus on more creative cluster provisions. I'd revise it to revise zoning and subdivision development regulations to allow for more creative cluster provisions. Cluster development would be exactly what you guys are talking about, which
Right.
is preserving, reducing lot sizes for subdivisions to allow for more dense development, but with the trade-off that the developer has some larger areas for buffers and other things. That's mostly what cluster development is. So like Maplewood Forest is an example where they got like 25 lots, but one of the lots is 100 acres of conservation. So they had to conserve 100 acres, and then they got 2-acre lots instead of, and it's R3. So R3 actually requires 3-acre, but they got a 1-acre reduction because of the conservation.
What the cluster development does, you can't change your density
Right.
for whatever it is, like in RR3
Per acre.
per acre. And so, but what they can do is they can reduce the size of the lots up front and put bigger lots in the back,
Exactly.
and they reduce the length of the road
Yeah.
that they have to build.
Right. Yeah.
That's all it's for, is to reduce the length of the road.
So what this strategy says is to revise, and we could change revise. Again, revise sort of is a directive of like,
We need to go do.
it needs to do it now.
Right.
I don't know if we want to change that. But what this strategy to me is saying
Maybe
is
just
that
take revised out of it, just start with zoning and subdivision development regulations
shall allow.
shall allow for.
Yeah, shall
more
allow.
Yeah,
All right.
That way
that way
you
it's not.
kill revise and
I don't know that I'd say shall, 'cause that means you're gonna have to do it. I'd say may,
May allow.
yeah.
What do
You
you?
say
how do
shall,
y'all
that means
think?
you gotta do it.
right.
I would say may allow for.
Y'all pretty good with this word.
I'm not an English
Y'all
man.
good with that word.
May allow for more creative cluster provisions. And that way, let's say someone came along and our ordinance didn't fit it, we could come back and quote that, and staff could bring an amendment to the subdivision ordinance or the zoning ordinance and say, hey, could we change something to allow for this type of cluster development?
Mhm.
All right. Create policies and plans for the courthouse village that recognize and respect the scale and ambiance of its existing community character. I don't really know what to do.
Right.
I don't even know what ambiance means.
It just means keep it looking like small town courthouse.
Okay.
That's
Keep it like a village area.
Yeah.
Protect that view.
Preserve
that
it.
whole courthouse brick look. and-
That could
Just
bite
the-
you if somebody wanted to put a set of condos, apartments,
Oh, they're getting ready to, right behind the courthouse.
townhouses, anything like that right there.
Well, I think that's something that we don't really,
Yeah.
the thing about the village area, like in the town of Pulaski, when I worked prior, we had a historic district, and that historic district had a set of architectural
Right.
design guidelines that had an architectural review board that governed them. Well, the village doesn't have that, so there's really no way,
They're
We
getting
talked
ready
about
for
doing it.
duplexes right behind me.
we can't tell someone
Right.
what siding to use. And I don't even know if we want to get that far.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we
Next to
wanted to, I'm
it,
not
it's
saying
not
I want that
siding.
extra job.
See, that's already
done.
done.
Right.
So don't
Just never did do it.
And the courthouse is where we have.
But I'm waiting for
public
somebody
water
to
Right.
realize that and be like,
Was gonna allow a little bit to consider development.
but
Yes,
that's what's
We
going
had-
up, right?
we
Where they
almost
cleared that
maybe
property.
Consider taking that out. too.
Over there? Yeah. I don't think where I was. So it doesn't.
So that's a big complaint we get when we have somebody come in with a larger development in the village, is
No.
people say, well, you're messing up the village.
But not if it's.
But at
like
the
one
same
we just
time,
approved,
like-
Yeah,
The village is where your water sewer is
Right.
where,
Where you gotta have them.
right, so it's
Yeah.
sort of a, people who've lived here for 30, 40, 50 years don't want to see it not be a quote unquote village, which is like, single family homes, nicer lots, yards. Putting in townhomes or apartments, that's a little bit non-villagey, that's more,
yeah.
But there is
I
a
get
need for apartments right
Right.
here.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna have to have them sooner or later.
yeah.
Right,
One of the
yes.
things about a village is that it's important to have, some businesses and other services and so forth
There we go.
that where people can actually walk. And that's kind of what makes it a village as compared to a subdivision. And that's something that's really being pushed in planning these days.
Walkability.
Yeah.
Walkability is a big thing.
It's always been tough. That's a challenge we have for sure, is attracting business to
I
that
think
area.
they're gonna, supervisor's gonna approve that subdivision on Dunn Street without making sure they had some provision for pedestrian traffic. That's gonna come back to bite them. People will be complaining about kids walking in the street and walking down their yards and stuff like that.
Another sidewalk project for the CIP committee.
Right.
But why is the county paying for it? Development's all
I
paying.
know.
That's the thing, Chesterfield got 75% of their infrastructure built by developers of the whole county.
Converted.
All right,
It's gotta
so
be profitable for a developer to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we were trying to push them to put a sidewalk in, it didn't have to be a side, I mean, they could put a 4 foot wide paved strip and paint a line down both sides of it, as far as I'm concerned. There's something that's designated between where traffic walks and where people walk. That's the thing.
And they probably imagine real expensive.
Curb and gutter sidewalks.
I mean, look how
Yeah.
much our sidewalks
There's
cost.
no curb and gutter on the other side of Dunn Street, so it wouldn't have mattered as long as they painted a line and, put a line separating traffic from the pedestrian traffic.
Hopefully they'll work something out with DC Tire.
It ain't gonna happen now. If the county's approved it, I know those guys. If the county's approved it and they haven't had it locked down, they ain't never gonna do it now. It's done.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is DC and some of those other folks might get sick of people walking across and agree to put in a trail or something anyway.
So create policies and plans for the courthouse village that recognize and respect the scale and ambiance of its existing community character. What do y'all? Is that,
Do we still even need that?
I mean, I don't know what our
I would
policies
say-
and plans would be.
I personally think strike it,
out?
deal with it as it comes,
Yeah.
case by case, because that could,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing I wanna see is just more things down there that make it attractive.
this
but that
comp
doesn't-
plan right is a good thing, but it can also,
Hold you up.
people come in here and I'll say, I fit the comp plan. And you really, it's not the greatest idea that they got, but you'd like to do some stuff different, but they kind of got you. So you need to, hard to think about everything.
I feel like most of what we have already does that, I guess is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I don't. When you, I guess this is a general comment about developers that everybody knows. Developers, they, it's in their interest to go to the max. And so, comp plan is a guide. And I think this is probably in there because the public was interested in this.
I know a good
Yes.
developer is gonna know it better than we know it. It's a part of the comp plan that they're trying to go after.
Jerry,
They'll know it better than we know it.
The last update that we did to this thing is that they actually sent out a survey.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Are you?
Yeah, we're gonna do some surveys. That'll probably start up here, probably in January.
I can't wait to see.
Well, probably ought to do surveys before we put things this stuff, see what people want to do.
Yeah.
Well, this level.
But I'm saying that that's the reason it's in here is from prior comp plans and prior surveys and actual meetings that the public meetings where people had input. And that's part of the comp plan process. And I think that's why it's in.
Well, maybe we just get rid of create policies and plans and just say recognize and respect or something instead of having that action item. I mean,
You don't want to
That's-
take
that's
up
the thing is-
about it, what you're saying.
That's-
That's probably, it's in there for a reason. I shouldn't have said you need to take it out because it didn't just pop in there magically.
Right.
Like Juan said, they,
Probably came from a survey last time.
yeah, and I ain't gonna be the one that's gonna take some away from somebody here in the village to protect it.
Yeah.
And that's not a good.
But I see what you mean. It's
The
like
question
we're
is,
supposed to have action.
What does that look like in reality? So create policies and
I
plans.
guess he's asking, then that means we have to do something. So what are we gonna create?
Like, what is that?
It's an action item for us if we put that in there.
And to me, it just seems like it's a, let me know what you wanna do first. You don't wanna let some nuisance thing come into the village. You wanna keep it looking like it always has looked, but you also gotta have some growth.
So maybe promote development
Promote,
in the
yeah.
courthouse village while
Recognize.
recognizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
Like
that.
that.
That way we're not on the hook for having to make a
There
policy.
you go.
Yeah.
I think
Or even start
There
with
you go.
recognize.
Brady didn't realize he's gonna have to be an author when he talks.
So what was that
A
track?
wordsmither.
Maybe
Maybe
even
they-
start with recognize.
Recognize
Yeah.
and respect,
Yeah,
and then while promoting development or something,
yeah.
either way.
Yeah.
All right,
Mhm.
I'll fashion that up.
We're taking the verbs out. Like,
Okay, and again, my thought is for the, and we can always, alter our course of direction. But this sits there for years, and that's why I wanted this
Yeah.
committee to go through line by line. At least us seven will know, we'll have read through it.
Yeah.
And then when we get our feedback, and after we've done these revisions, I felt like we could put them together. Say, this is what our revisions were. This is what community feedback is. Because also the feedback we get from the community is gonna be like very general.
Yeah.
Keep the community rural.
yeah, that's all you're
We
gonna,
need more
right?
business,
Yeah,
more
Like-
activities for the kids.
right, it's gonna be.
You're gonna
the
get
same.
comments like that. More opportunities for young farmers.
It's not gonna be like 100
Yeah.
foot setbacks, yeah.
All right,
Depending on how you word your question.
I guess,
survey, it's gonna
yeah.
depend on how detailed you
Yep.
want your answer.
all right, G, encourage residential development. And so this originally said, encourage residential development to locate within the planning areas that are served by public water, sewer, and other infrastructure. Well, right now, the only area that's served is the sanitary
Right.
district. So I've changed it to encourage residential development to locate within the sanitary district as it is served by public water, sewer, and other infrastructure.
That's, I think it's
I
gonna.
think that's all
All
right.
right,
And then if that district is increased, that would still be.
Yeah, we still cover it,
applicable.
if
Yep.
anything becomes sanitary.
All right. H, develop and this is another one that's just a little bit vague in terms of what it actually means for us to do. Develop governance policies and programs that ensure Amelia County continues to be a safe and attractive community in which to live and work.
That's almost like one to scratch.
Yeah. Get the.
Or just say recommend.
I mean,
how
really, like, we don't do anything about being safe and,
No,
I don't know, to me, that's more
beyond,
policing and,
beyond our purview.
Fund the sheriff's department. I mean, I don't.
yeah, to me, that's not really a planning commission.
I don't see any reason.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
All right,
Let's put this on that.
Mhm.
cool. All right. Let's move on
Like, we made
let's
it.
actually move on to section 3 real quick, guys. And this is why I also printed out the future land use section because of section 3. So these two correlate. So section 3 is called development areas. If you remember what the last comp plan recommended in the future land use map section, it was these development areas, and there were 6 of them. and they had titles.
Yeah.
There was
What page was
the,
that?
sir,
What page were those?
30.
30.
page 30 of the comp plan, the planning area designation. So you had Amelia Courthouse or the town center development area, which would be the village, the corridor crossroads mixed use development area, the corridor economic development industrial area, the rural residential community area, the rural and ag area, and the Jetersville rural village area.
I'd love to know where that is.
Uh-huh.
And I just sort of got all kind of confused with that.
Yeah.
To
I'm
me-
saying, as somebody who wasn't here, I definitely don't know.
Right. To me, I'm almost leaning for, we just be really simple with it and identify a few areas that we want future residential growth and say these are future residential growth areas. A few areas where we want business growth, future business growth, well, in commercial sense. Areas where we want industrial, so future industrial, and then your rural and ag preservation areas. Because that's your different areas, is residential growth, commercial, industrial, and rural and ag. If we want to break it down from there further, residential could be single family, multifamily, townhomes, apartments, over there. But commercial and industrial are pretty much, you can pretty much differentiate the difference between, law offices and hair shops and salons and other commercial operations versus a forest products or a lumber company being industrial. I just don't really know if those are clear, those planning area designations, and they never were defined. They were recommended, but they never were defined, and the land use map was never updated to incorporate them. So we're not even really using them.
Right.
But that's
Well,
goal area 3.
It sort of was, because I remember Scottsport, they picked that as like a village area, and Jetersville, and see, they got the little, on the map, they got the little Scottsport area, down
Highlighted.
the road there.
And that's what's weird is if you look at the back page 33, it says the comprehensive plan establishes Jetersville as the sole rural village area planning area. So I guess Scottsport was maybe going to be more of like not a rural village, but maybe like a business
But
area.
other than the church, nothing's been built in Scottsport
Right.
for
I mean,
20
Scott
years.
Fork isn't even mentioned on here. Oh, no.
It's highlighted in the.
Oh, right, but it's not mentioned in
They
the,
haven't even built a house there in 20 years. I mean, so
well, somebody just built one
church is the
too.
only thing that's been
Houses.
new down there. I mean, those areas, even Jetersville area has not taken off like we kind of thought it would.
But there is some potential. Jetersville has some really favorable zoning. It's got some R1 zoning. There's some potential there in Jetersville. It's just the proximity really on the wrong.
You gotta
It's about
trust
7-8 miles in the wrong direction.
But
Farmville's really growing a lot.
The Farmville's growing.
They
That's
all go
true.
to
A
farming.
lot, man.
I mean, Jetersville really is a dense enough area to be considered as a possible little village
Yep.
development.
So let's keep that. So we'll keep
I
Jetersville.
will say though, that is where you move into that, like you were talking about Oak Springs issue. All those people do all their business in Farmville. I know everybody I know that lives out that way, does nothing in Amelia.
They're going that.
They all go to Farmville forever.
Well, you got the same problem up there at railroad track
Oh, I know, you're not gonna, I'm just
True.
saying.
That's true. On the one side.
on the one side.
Where you're looking at 7 or 8 minutes to drive to Food Line here in Amelia. You could drive 20 minutes the other way and be in Farmville with all kinds of different stores.
Walmart.
I would not go the other way.
All
It
right.
depends on where you live.
Well,
too. I
so
was-
maybe
It
keep-
depends on what somebody's doing. It also depends on where the employment and so forth is.
Yeah, true, if they're
But-
employed in Chesterfield.
But when our pressure, our overwhelming pressure is coming from the east.
Mhm.
And so whatever development we can encourage west of Amelia, it's still pretty close to the
Yeah. And
to
balance
to the
it.
center of the county and the school systems and so forth.
That's good.
That is, should be encouraged. And, people at least are passing the businesses and so forth located along in the center of the county. If they're to the west west of the courthouse, and they're traveling to the east. Yeah, obviously, if somebody lives there and works in Palm, that it doesn't apply. But it just depends on the individual situations. But I do think that that is probably the one area that that would be maybe best to encourage.
Well, I think we may have messed up. You know, we talked about this 360 overlay thing, and somebody wanted to go from Amelia East and not go all the way through the county. But you look out there, you've got the new industrial park that's just got rezoned out there. You know, you got the churches running the old buddy's place. You got Swift Creek Forest Products. You got that
Dennis Taylor.
Woodland or whatever out there that for people. Then you got Rock River Homes right there in Jetersville. You got industrial repair, right? I mean,
The landfill.
in the landfill. I
Don't
mean,
mention that.
industry 360 overlay should go through the entire county on the whole 360 all the way through, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what if we just named it like the Jetersville Development Area?
And not the village.
Like rural village planning area, just as a weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't have a village.
Yeah.
Per se.
That'd be all right.
Maybe
They did have a
Jetersville
post office.
Development Area.
Yeah, the post office.
All right, so that's one we're definitely gonna keep, and then we'll make sure that we have all right, so G, if you look under 3G says continue to recognize Jetersville as a village planning area while emphasizing modest growth and density within geographical boundaries for the village. And I think we could just keep that really and just say, continue to recognize or emphasize, maybe emphasize Jetersville as a development area,
Yes.
Yep.
I agree with that.
you know?
Yeah.
Continue to recognize Jetersville as a development area while emphasizing modest growth and density within its geographical boundaries. And maybe we sort of look at those, or we look at the geographical bound.
Well, it says for the village. It's a
Right,
big
and that's-
difference. See, I lived in Jetersville. I was not in whatever, I don't even know what y'all call the village, honestly. I was like out South Genito,
Right.
way close to Sailor Creek. That is still Jetersville.
Language.
So I don't know what is a village for Jetersville,
What we talked about.
unless you mean the post office.
Was from the post office, you
Okay.
turn off 360, we were talking about going up through there to Elliott's store. That little pie right there is what we would call them, like Jetersville.
Post office to Elliott's.
That's what and Scotts Fork was a half a mile from Scotts Fork, because it doesn't go all the way up to Hidden Valley subdivision.
Yeah.
That was what we had, is like a radius.
Well, if you look at the map that's on the next page past what he's looking at, the town that talks about that, they turn the Jetersville development area is a huge area, which is, I don't see why it's to be that big.
Where is it now? On 30, where do you see it outlined? Where? That.
Page
I don't know. I think that might
Page
just be the
29.
courthouse.
Put it on.
I don't know if it goes that far.
What page are you on?
29, the
That's
map.
5 Forks. And I think this is just the.
Oh, yeah. I just doesn't have the whole county.
It doesn't.
Okay, I
That's
got
one
you.
of those weird,
Courthouse.
And,
one
why
of those weird things.
wouldn't the whole county shown?
Yep.
But this, I don't know, this area here at Scotts Fork, I mean, it hadn't been developed or any, I mean, I can see why Chula Road and 360 right there, but that's not that area there's not developing either. I don't understand why they came way down Cheatham's Road on that map. That should have been
Right.
just cut off like right up here.
And that's another one of those things that I think we can sort of, in a way, simplify. It's just by doing that corridor that you guys have been talking about,
Right.
instead of those weird little shaped areas.
That would take care of Chula, they take care of that little strip there
Yep.
at Cheatham's Road and Butler's Road up in there. And then it would, but I think that corridor thing should apply to the whole county, all the way through the 360.
Right. Door all the way through.
Because you got a lot of business out west of Amelia already.
Well, I mean, you talk about Jetersville, one of the best, I think someone mentioned it last time, right there at 307, the property there, that'd be great property for
Anything.
anything. Yeah, you got 307, 360.
460's close by.
Yep.
Farmville.
Yep.
So basically from 307 back up would be the corridor.
Well, you know why they didn't show the rest of the county?
That's county.
Because they didn't show, they got one little specter around Jetersville, all the rest of it, this stuff and that. They
I
didn't
would
show
say I
anything else
happened
out
to
that
be at
way.
307.
That's why they didn't show it all.
We're thinking
5:45 the other night.
I would.
Many cars
I
were
would,
back.
'cause you got businesses
And I
scattered
was like,
all the way
man,
down.
many people getting off work from Farmville, coming home.
All right.
I guess I had never been there right at that time.
Stoplight sometime.
Good gosh, it's
So-
traffic, yeah.
Letter G, under 3, we got that one straight. And we're sort of thinking post office to Elliott Store would be the actual Jetersville development area, while the 360 corridor would keep on running, down towards 307. If you look under these other
They just told me.
items, it says designate appropriate land area in the 3 development areas that will be sufficient to accommodate the county's long range. Since we're sort of maybe striking those areas, I think we need to, that's something we gotta define is what is our residential development areas? Where we want them? And then we need to identify land in those areas that we want to designate. That's something that we're probably not gonna, not do today, but that's just needs to be on the plate.
Yeah, I feel like we need a map on the TV for that day.
Yep. Encourage projects in the residential portions of the development areas to respect traditional neighborhood principles, including higher density, village scale streets,
You-
attractive
I
architecture.
kind of got lost. Where are we now?
That's B now.
Oh, we're down in that one, okay.
We're under development areas, goal,
Gotcha.
objective. And I struck this, if you look at the red, I
Oh,
struck
wait, huh?
those
Page 20.
areas, and I just said,
Okay.
need to review the formally proposed development and how the planning commission would like to identify these moving forward.
It is illegal for us to ask
Oh, we were
for
just told. Gee,
any kind of
back up. I was like,
problem,
gee.
whether it be a
Any cash?
in cash, but you could ask for a sidewalk, a playground, more like, you could ask for stuff like that.
Technically, any proffer has to be voluntary, so the planning commission would have to state it like, we're concerned about this. And the developer would have to take that as a hint to
Do something.
offer a
That's
proffer.
what Paul Grasswoods helped us would do this stuff 10 or 15 years ago. And he said the proffer system lubricates the approval process. Is what he heard.
Yeah.
Which is certain degree, right?
We'd like to see,
Now with us being no cash proffers.
right.
Yeah.
Really for, what I wanted to show you guys for 3 is that whole section is really gonna have to be, because if
Yeah.
we're gonna sort of strike those weird areas, the mixed use corridor, the economic corridor, if we're just gonna be a little bit more streamlined and say, this is a residential development area, this is an industrial development area, this is a commercial, then we're gonna have to revise that area. I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. The last one that I amended, because it was the last one we talked about, was development area 4. And I actually went through and, sorry, not development area 4, sorry, goal 4, which is economic development. I actually went through and made some strike through edits.
Page you're on.
That's page 21. It's like the 4th page of your,
21 and 22.
Yeah, 21 and
Oh,
yep.
okay, promote
So
balance between jobs and housing. Designate sufficient land area with.
I think the goal is still good. Work to attract new businesses that employ many citizens and contribute to the local tax base through business-friendly regulatory practices and other incentives and growth areas. I think that's pretty good.
yeah.
The strategy A says encourage a diversified economic base that respects existing businesses as well as the goals and policies for the rural and agricultural planning areas.
Yep.
B says develop plans that promote tourism and agribusiness in the rural and agricultural areas. Something that I wanted to bring up here, because we've had people is short-term rentals. farm stays, Airbnbs. We don't allow those in our rural areas.
I think we ought to change that.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
do too.
sure, I don't really know how you promote tourism
They're everywhere
in
already.
ag areas unless
Not in
Larkin
Amelia.
opens his dairy once a week for.
Not legal.
Within 200 yards of where you're sitting.
That one's legal because that's not rural.
It's business.
That's
Yeah.
It's
business.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if
Yeah.
if it's in a business district right now,
Yeah.
we have a classification
That
for
one's
a
legal,
tourist
yes.
home that
Huh?
Airbnb would fall
That's what
in, and a
you-
B1 zone.
Sorry. I gotta think where I'm sitting.
So Airbnbs are legal in a business district.
Right,
As a tourist home is
Okay.
how it would fall in,
but not in rural preservation, right?
or any residential district.
Well, why not?
Right, I brought that up.
Yeah.
And we would like to change it, but it was because of some rule, which is what.
Right now, they're not. And I think this is a perfect one because it's a residential use, but it's also a bit of, really a bit, it's a.
I think part of it may have been because it's a newer thing. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how long ago that was decided, but I'm guessing maybe it was decided before it became so popular.
I don't think it was
Before.
decided like no short-term
Or it
rentals.
just was
This-
written
our
that way
ordinance was defined.
before Airbnb really became a thing and then nobody
Possibility.
revisited it.
Yeah,
I think it would generate restaurant income. I don't see where it would.
Detriment.
Yeah, I don't really see the
Anyway,
problem with it. That's
it
kind
brings
of.
folks in the
The
county.
homeowner that's called, got the problem, not the county.
do we want to, is there any development standards you want them to have?
To me, it's if if you wanna rent your room out, somebody come here and look at some Civil War stuff where they might grab a burger or something somewhere in Amelia.
Right.
Fine, they might have a flat tire, need a tire fix or something welded. This, to me, is, I think you're getting a good type of person. They're gonna be doing an Airbnb for a reason.
It brings
Most
folks into
time.
the county.
Most time what you have to pay it then. There ain't gonna be any sidekick.
So I won't add any language, but that'll be something that would need to be brought forth as a zoning amendment.
All
We
right.
need to like add, I don't know what we title them.
I don't
Short-term
have
rentals,
no-
Airbnbs, farm stays,
Short-term rental,
short-term, yeah.
yeah.
If you, that's the reason we turned out Ronnie Pilson's apartments out here on the Lookerty place, because he said people are gonna be there, only be there for a couple of months doing this Fast C stuff over at Blackstone. And that's why that's what we didn't want. People were gonna come in and stay 2 or 3 months to leave. That's why the short term, you gotta be careful. If you change the language, say short-term rental, then we should have approved that apartment.
I didn't like the apartments just because it was so much at one time and there's also no sidewalks and it's a thin street, dangerous.
I look at it, I've never done Airbnb, so I look at it as though somebody,
Yeah.
I would just not stay in a hotel here in Amelia, might have a little house they want to stay in for a day, maybe a week, be a family member or something, you know?
Well, Winterham Plantation
Is that
outside the
something-
district, you can.
Something like that right there, yeah.
They, I mean,
No, you
they're-
can't, it's been closed for years.
They might not.
Winter
they might
Haven's been
be
closed for
looking
years.
on land fair, just be not knowing about.
They still have weddings and stuff there, for them, like that very last year. Oh, yes,
At Winterham?
at Winterham.
Oh, yeah, not that I'm aware of. We called out there. They've had a for sale sign for a long time.
Well, and I mean,
I
this,
know
Try to
they,
sell it.
policy wise,
I can't believe it had one last year, but,
detached
I believe
dwelling
you
units, and we've
but their
always
stuff
said with
been
the
ripped
condition
apart.
that
It'll not be
they
run.
not be rental property.
Come again.
I said, we've allowed, since I've been here, and I think historically before I came along, we've allowed detached dwelling units, but it's always been conditioned that it can't
Can't
be
be rented.
rental property. So that's where this would be, if, like, let's say it's a special exception.
well, I think you call it short term and not,
Short-
it
not
can't live there for
detached
10
dwelling,
years.
short-term
Right.
Rental unit or something.
I know when
I
they,
think you'd have to define really what you're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
It can't be for somebody to live in as a residence. It can be for
It's a
Airbnb.
vacation
It
or.
can be for, right, I think somehow we define it like that.
To
Right.
do that, you're gonna have to say, put some sort of a definition in there that's gonna be
Yeah,
short-term means less than a week or less than 2 weeks or something.
yeah, certainly, like no more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, because,
So that you don't, because it would get abused, there'd be, people that would, they have, 2 people and And first of all, it'd be one of them that would be doing it, and then it'd be the other one that they.
Well, they would have to maybe show you their, I mean, if you're, you have to set up with those companies, so they would maybe have to provide that to you to show that,
Registered.
yeah, I mean,
It's a lot of money to stay in an Airbnb, and most people aren't gonna stay there more than 2 weeks. It comes to
Right.
corporate, they'll be better off
Yeah.
finding a real rental.
it depends, like my cousins do it, and they started doing it for vacationers, but then they found out that the medical is where
Traveling.
money is at.
Yeah.
So now they rent literally like months at a time for traveling nurses and doctors, and they make bank because they have a loft apartment over their business, and they have doctors that rent it nonstop for their traveling nurses.
Yeah.
Now that's in a city, not in a rural area like this. So they actually switched over to doing that instead of like for the vacationing. But the one thing I was going to bring up as far as economy and what he was saying about bringing, the one thing Amelia is starting to have more of is a couple venues, right? We went a while, we had some, they closed, Selma closed. Come on, the one that's right in town, we're not too shabby is come on, what was that one called? The big house right behind Southern States.
Oh,
The
McLeod.
Glee closed, but you got Whispering Pines. You're starting to get, we've got Haunted Vineyards now. They're doing weddings on weekends. What's the one thing we don't have? We don't got anywhere for these people to stay. When I had a wedding, I had 200 guests. None of them stayed in Amelia County because there was nowhere for them to stay. And I'm no offense to the one we have, but that's,
You just wanted to bust you in up here.
they all stayed at Airbnbs in surrounding counties and hotels in surrounding counties, right? So I don't see us getting a hotel anytime soon. So I think that, that's just one other issue I look at, is when you're having events like parties and weddings, people are having to travel outside to come in and back out because we don't really have that option. And I know when my family comes to visit, they stay in Airbnbs in Burkeville because we don't have them here.
So is there
So-
something language wise? And the reason I brought it up is because tourism and develop plans that promote tourism and agribusiness in the rural and agricultural areas. I don't really know other ways you promote tourism unless you do, it's either farm tours or farm stays. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing pumpkin, like
This is,
Yeah.
Taylor's son did at
a
Coverly.
lot of people go to Sailor's Creek Battlefield and stuff for reenactments.
Are you trying to tie that to Airbnb? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Is that where you tie it into people staying?
Is that really in our purview, like tourism and stuff? But
I just don't know, what do those plans look like? Again, it's when you have an action item that says develop plans that promote tourism and
Oh,
agribusiness.
sorry, I get
What do
it.
those plans look like? And I'm just bringing in, I think the only thing that
Right.
you really can bring people is if they're staying out there. We're just gonna make people travel to farms in Amelia.
Well, I also think that like the
That's-
winery is an example of agribusiness. That is a
Right.
farm. They grow grapes. They have winery, they have venues, things like that, like Coverly, things like that aren't just the farm. You've got to have
So
something.
what would those?
Nobody's showing up at your farm for
What would those
tour.
plans look like? Or should we just say support
Yes,
Support.
support, right.
tourism and agri, you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
what does it look like to develop?
And
a plan for
develop,
that?
right, I understand what you're saying. Like support those type businesses. Like the Lavender Farm is another good example. They have done, a great job.
Started doing some.
yeah, that's right. They opened a shop out there. That's a good example. Yeah.
I mean, you
Watkins,
have, you have
Behind, right
more-
behind Winterham.
more of
She
that
opened a store.
kind of thing.
They carry, yeah, I didn't know
Right.
either.
Just-
But they carry, yeah.
But I know when they
Yep.
built our
After Winterham.
robot barn,
You know,
the crew that came out of Kentucky, they rented a house in Farmville. That's where they stayed while
Really?
they be here 5 days. I don't know how long they rented it because didn't take them about 2.5 months to build it, but they were here 5 days and go back 2 days and come back.
When they built a bridge in Amelia, they rented in Berkeley. You couldn't find a house in Amelia to rent.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I bet you 7 out of 10 people
Oh, no, I'm at Winterham Plantation.
may not even know about Airbnb
Winterham Plantation.
that's got some age on
and
it.
that's on.
I've never rented one, but there's people that I'm talking about, they got some nice historical houses.
Yeah.
They opened a store.
And
They just have trees.
it's probably going on in the county now, we don't even know about it. But if you advertise and said, hey, Airbnbs are good to go, you might right there generate some stuff about other people going, especially all back in there.
Yeah, and see, like I
Maybe
said,
leave this weekend.
venues is tourism, venues is,
Yup.
and then venues can say, hey,
Yeah.
here's some Airbnbs we have, you can, yeah.
How about support tourism and agribusiness in rural and agricultural areas by promoting venues, farm stays, farm tours? I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so we're gonna change it maybe to support it, but then how do we support it?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Support tourism and agribusiness, unless y'all just want to leave it open. Support tourism and agribusiness in rural and agricultural areas.
Well,
I think we
But
might,
if you put it in the comprehensive plan, that's supporting it.
okay,
That comprehensive
I
plan is
understand
your
what you're saying, yep.
long-term guide. It shows that you're open.
It's only other thing,
Maybe
to
promote-
that.
Promote tourism, instead of develop plans, maybe promote tourism and agribusiness in the rural and ag areas by,
Yeah.
you could put example, e.g.
By allowing
Yeah.
short-term rental Airbnbs.
I don't know, by, yeah. I mean, we have a couple good,
Breweries.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if we want to get that specific, I think we,
And really short-term could even be only a week. Probably be average.
Well, I would say, well, if you didn't have
try to come up
somebody,
with something.
if you didn't have somebody came to say they were, for whatever reason, they were gonna take a vacation in Amelia. They may be here a week or maybe 8 or 10 days, but certainly I'll be limited, like I said, no more than 2 weeks.
I would say,
you know.
people come visit family and stuff.
So we'll have to update that. All right,
How do the people at the campground get rid of, there's people been living in the camper now?
Because that's not considered rental property. It's a business,
got a
it's not
mailbox.
considered rental
Yeah.
property.
They got their
Brady.
own post office.
Brady, good well people live out there permanently.
I know people have been out there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In a camper.
Don't get the mail.
How'd they get away with that? That's gotta be illegal.
how many years has it been there?
Grandfathered in.
Oh, with the campground?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been
God.
there for 40 years.
That's
Oh,
right.
That's why.
Yeah, I just don't know how you,
Yeah, I mean,
how do you approach it?
that's really
at this
their
point?
internal policy, I guess.
I'll tell you this, if someone came in and wanted to do one, they wouldn't be allowed to just,
Open up shop.
yeah. So that, it's almost like they've been there so long, they're sort of getting away.
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, the grandfather.
Grandfathered in, non-conforming use.
Whatever happened to the treetop camping people? They never came back.
All right, letter C. Strategy C under economic development, promote a balance between jobs and housing that emphasizes in-county employment opportunities over out commuting. I think that's still
That's fine.
viable. I don't see any change. I mean, we do want people to work here and live here. We do. You hate people living here and leaving for work, which most people do because you lose a lot of that tax revenue. So I think we'll definitely still do that. Designate sufficient land area, and I changed this with proximity to Route 360 of suitable size, terrain features, access conditions, and location for future economic development and associated growth. I added the with proximity to Route 360.
Yeah, because that's kind of the corridor we're
Right.
working with.
But that's in line with what people have said and all the input has
Yes.
been
Yeah, it's not enough.
in 360 and the central part of the county
It's like trying to get sheets out of it.
where they wanted that kind of road.
Yes, sir.
But it's true.
All right, letter D. Sorry, not letter D, letter E. Encourage future non-agricultural economic development, and I just put to locate within the Route 360 corridor. That's a little redundant with D, but
Well, one's
one's
non-agriculture and
one says future.
I leave like,
No, I mean, they both say economic development.
And one says non-agricultural, but yeah, still to locate within the Route 360 corridor is what I
Redundant.
changed.
I feel like you could join them and they'd be the same.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe
They're literally, yeah,
maybe
they're both talking about non-agricultural. I mean, economic development, I don't think it's
Mhm.
farming. But I think of economic development.
combine D and E.
Mhm.
All right, letter F, work with property owners within the designated development areas to market and attract appropriate industry and business to the county. Remember, we're gonna revise those development areas, but I still think that's a good goal, work with property owners.
yeah,
Yeah,
All right, G, consider proactively initiating commercial and industrial zoning amendments in the Route 360 corridor.
Or along the Route 66 corridor probably sounds better.
I should have added something. It should say, I think it should say, consider proactively initiating commercial and industrial zoning map amendments, right? Like you're actually changing the zoning map
Oh,
And not the ordinance.
and not the actual,
Because we're good on the ordinance.
yeah.
Right.
Or maybe just put initiating, yeah, it'd be zoning map amendments.
Or maybe don't.
That's
put
almost like-
consider, I mean.
It's almost like the planning commission would basically pre-zone something
yeah.
to open the door if there was a parcel that the property owner, like, let's say they didn't have a Tractor Supply ready, but the property owner said, I want this to be commercial, and they came to the planning commission proactively rezoned it
Yes.
before a plan is before us. That's a
Okay.
little different than how it's been done. See what I'm saying? That's a change in philosophy. For example, the industrial park that the county brought through, the planning commission wanted to see the plan, along with the rezoning. When you proactively or preemptively rezone, you're just saying, hey, we want something there and we want to clear the zoning hurdle.
Be attractive to it. Yeah.
Exactly, because that's what someone could market to a developer, like a realtor could say, zoned such and such. It just makes it.
Well, it depends on the zoning. I mean, if you're gonna zone it to business, then you can put doctor office or whatever there.
Right.
If you're gonna zone it to him, like you did industrial park, now, somebody could come in and put something we didn't want there, so it's important for us to kind of know what's going there before we approve that rezoning. I mean,
Right.
That would be fine for some zoning, for other zoning, it would not be appropriate, I think.
So do you still want to leave it like I think that's a good term, consider doing it?
Yeah.
I'd agree.
All right.
That'd be the same thing as if to 200 feet, you consider dropping it back to 100 feet.
I think that one property owner is a great example where if he came in and said, would you guys mind rezoning my property from RR3 to B1 because I want it to be more marketable?
Yeah, something like that. See.
Yeah, right. All right, I think that's what that's getting at. Okay. H, encourage appropriately scaled infill business and service development within the courthouse town center development area.
I've never heard of that.
Right, we're gonna strike,
Village.
that's gonna be the village,
Yeah.
within the village.
What's weird is I don't even remember it being called that on page 30.
But I really don't even know what that means either.
Oh, yeah, it does say courthouse town center. Yeah.
I mean, the infill businesses are gonna have to go where they can go. I mean, in the village, there's old buildings.
Yeah, you wonder whatever's gonna happen to that old, Western Auto up there. It's sitting blank for years.
Yeah.
Right across from FSA and the bank, right on the corner here.
They,
Western Auto was way before y'all, most of y'all were here.
Is the car dealership?
No.
Hey, Miss Parker was only ran an antique store out there for a while, but then once she.
Right behind Crossroads.
Oh, the brick build?
Yeah.
That dude has no interest in doing anything with it.
Yeah, she sold it.
From
what I've heard, that dude
He hasn't
has-
done anything with it other than.
From what I've heard, he has no plans to do anything. He's using it for storage.
Yeah, he has some.
He has no plans.
It's a great building. though.
I know, it's,
Well, that would be an example of an infill
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
yeah.
If it were done.
It was tore down, something nice put in there.
Well, like the store, the Mexican store is what I knew it as. I don't know what it was before. That's been sitting vacant for a
That's
long
old, that
time.
pharmacy.
That's been sitting vacant for a long, long time.
Well, they had the Republican.
Right, but she's not using it
You know,
now.
It's comes and goes with stuff.
I don't think she's using it
The
now.
Mexican store is
It's
down
available.
there by.
I know, but I mean, I just knew it as that. I don't know what it was before, but whatever that building is. I mean, really, there's not many other available buildings in the village right now.
That building was
It's-
built by Tom Epps.
They're all-
That pharmacy there.
They're all used up.
Yeah.
It's just the type of things that are in there versus
Or
what you might need, right?
All right, so I think encourage and just changing that to within the village. Good. All right, I, prioritize the development of new sewer treatment facilities to span a further distance along the Route 360 corridor.
Encourage.
I think that's the plan all along, but they're talking
Right.
about building a new treatment plant down on the river. We're right there on 316.
And then J is just the water side of that, and we might can combine those and just say water /
You know,
sewer, but
Yeah.
prioritize the development of water supply sources to serve the Route 360 corridor.
Could they be put together?
Yep, I think
Yeah.
that could be combined. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. All right, K, work with the public school system to assess the lifestyle needs of the county's youth. Develop and promote job recruitment and job training programs to retain Amelia's high school graduates. Hopefully that we can do something with the new VOTEC school
I think that'll help.
and align our businesses that come in with the
And
programs that are offered.
The high school does have a pretty robust, their CTE program, which they've been ramping up the last
Yeah.
few years. So one of our suggestions in strategic planning for the school was to actually have a person that would be half community, half schools to do exactly this, K. But that got not done. But anyway, but the whole idea there was to do exactly what you're saying in K. A lot of counties around us have that exact position with their county and their schools, and they act as a liaison to be able to do that. Prince Edward has one, Lunenburg has one. I can't remember which others. I called around and did the research a couple years ago. But that's one thing we don't have here, but.
How about that terminology, lifestyle need? Work
I
with
know,
the public
that's what
school
the-
system to assess the lifestyle
I
need.
would get rid of lifestyle.
Is all that really in the purview either?
Yeah,
I almost know if it's just
Strike it out.
work with the school system
yeah,
to,
develop and promote, yeah.
yeah, assess the work, like,
I would just put develop and promote, recruit and job training.
But some things are being done in the school system.
yeah.
There was recently, about a month ago, her son involved in,
Jeremy was up there one day.
Yeah, they do, the
One
CTE
whole,
program is good about bringing people in. He went and spoke to the
but
agriculture.
anyway, they had three speakers.
Yeah. They were all ag.
And, anyway, it was agriculture.
Yes, it was agriculture, right?
Yeah, that's what it was around. And my son was one of them,
Mhm.
and he took a sprayer, big
Oh, that was the career fair.
high boy
Yeah,
sprayer there. And opened it up and everything, and kids were getting in it.
Yeah.
So forth. So, that's,
Being done.
and they've been doing that every year for a while. I usually participate. Richard's been up there. You were up there this year,
I
weren't
could
you?
go this year,
Oh, you
but I've
could.
been, it's a great thing. I've got one boy.
You're
that
going
works
to-
for us that I got
Uh-huh.
from Career Day.
Yeah. The county is good about, and the county used to do a thing where they would actually carry them. I don't know if they've done it on the last year or so, but they used to actually take the kids and take them to all the county offices. It was a reverse field trip. Oh, well, reverse career fair. So they would actually take the kids, they would go to the sheriff's department, treasurers up here, and they would like learn about like, these are what kind of jobs you can get in your own county or, something like that. They've been out to the landfill, they've done that. So I think they do a pretty good job of that. But like you said, the reality is when they come out of school, those jobs aren't available. I mean, county jobs are few and far between. And we don't have a lot of other. So it's really the matter of not just working with them, but to actually,
Well, a lot of it's
Have
just to
places
make them
for them.
aware of.
yeah,
When most people say agriculture, they think you're sitting on a stool
gotta be a farmer.
with bibbed overalls
Right.
and
milking a cow.
milking a cow off a stool, when you
Yeah.
come and see the computer technology and the sprayer that,
Yeah.
and.
They're like the only thing you're building. I mean,
Yeah.
that's to me is.
I
the
mean,
whole-
it's a lot of things like that, whether they stay in the county or not, there is an agriculture that they could come
Right.
back and
Come back
utilize.
later.
Work with the public school system to increase awareness of local job opportunities.
Yeah.
And then ending that with developing, potential recruitment and training programs that
And pro-
pipeline to those job
Could
opportunities.
do.
Yeah.
Because you're right. A lot of times people go, and then they come back.
Okay.
Like, did your son leave for a while and then come back, or was he?
All right.
too?
No, they've
Well,
been back
guys,
out a couple-
we have been
They've been
going
back
now
out.
for an hour and
Right,
3
that's what I'm
minutes.
saying.
And,
That happens a lot.
I think we've gotten those 3 sections pretty good. So I'm gonna finalize all the language there. And then we'll start with ag, forestry, and natural resources next time, which will be probably January. We'll do ag, forestry, natural resources, and then hopefully go through transportation, 2 and 5. And that would leave 6, 7, 8, and 9
We'll have 18 workshops.
left.
Before we get through.
Simultaneously, what's going on in the scheme of county business is the CIP call letter has been sent out. I attached the planning commission to that email, so you should have seen it. I just sent an updated project progress master file document. You can look and see all the progress that's been made, the money spent, and what the status and update is on each project that's active. So that's not just last year's projects, but that goes all the way back to some project from FY21 that are still active. The CIP committee will meet the 30th of January. Planning commission will meet the week before that, the 22nd of January. The board, the chairman of the board, Mr. Phelps, wants the planning commission and board to have a joint meeting to discuss the comp plan. I'm thinking, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on suggesting to him, maybe we do the survey and stuff with the community. So spend hopefully about 45 days on that, starting after the beginning of the year. Do the survey with the community, 45, 60 days. Finish up this comp plan committee's editing of the goals. And then we could take the survey feedback information and the revised goals and objectives to a joint meeting where the planning commission and board can talk about.
That'd probably help you.
Does that sound? And that would probably.
Hash it out, and then you'd have to go back, finish the comp plan from what the suggestions made between those two.
So I know we're working on, I have a couple dumb questions
Yeah.
just because I haven't done this.
No
before.
questions,
do it.
don't.
So I know we're going through these little parts, but then I assume we have to go through, I mean, I see how long it takes us just to do a couple bullets, but we got like 85 pages.
Well, a lot of that is,
So are we going
Some of
through
it's like.
that in the
plan
same,
is like,
or are we just going through? Okay.
yeah, like natural resources,
It's just blah, blah,
gyms
blah.
and
Okay.
mining and stuff that really is about Amelia County is not gonna change.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
making sure the information is
up to date.
up to date. This stuff though is the meat and potatoes.
The
The
strategic,
future land use
right?
map, the goals and objectives, and the demographic section are like the core.
It's so that
That's what holds the county together.
Right.
The other
Yeah.
part is
it's just all
education.
fluffy. Okay.
Yep, educational.
So then my other question is, when y'all do the survey, how do you typically go about that, and what are
I've
the?
never done one here, but I've gotten, the CRC sent me the surveys that they did because they helped Buckingham, Lunenburg, Cumberland. They've sent me what they've done, and right now I'm gonna work with them and we'll put something together.
It's generally advertised in the paper.
Yep.
So people know it's.
At one time, it was in the paper, it came in the paper, and then you had to fill it out and send it back in.
Well,
Then it went also online, so you could
I was gonna
fill in
say-
2 or 3 of them
I
if you
would say
wanted
you
to.
have to have both if you want. The school does
Yeah.
everything via, like Google
Google
Forms,
Forms.
which I think you need to have that option, because if you have only paper, all the,
Well, most
you're
people
not
don't
gonna
get the
that back.
newspaper now.
Right. You
Well,
don't
I
get,
was gonna
right.
send it.
Yeah, it has to be broad-based.
It definitely needs
Yeah.
it.
It has,
Both
it
ways.
has to have a variety.
But the problem is, like he said, the paper doesn't go anymore. So you can't,
Rely on 'em.
a lot of folks don't get the paper at all, or
One
once a
thing we
month,
could do if we
so.
could get it done quick enough is we could send it out. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's,
I don't know what the
personal
budget
property,
is. I was
there's
saying,
a-
do we have budget to
we
actually
could
do a
probably put an
mailing?
insert in one of the mass send outs that goes to county residents.
Well, you could put it in there, said it's on the internet at such and
Yeah.
such thing.
Put a QR
What
code.
do we have going out? What do y'all have? What do y'all have going out?
Something coming up going out soon. I was just asking Kenny Llewellyn. I can't remember what it was. I'll follow up, but the county does some mass send outs periodically, whether it's like personal property taxes or.
Or you could put it in their water bill. Just kidding.
The thing about the water, we could put it.
Oh, that's right, it's only on
It's
the
only for
sanitary.
district.
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of response on what's happening on Facebook.
happening, Amelia, we could put it there.
Well, I think you just put the Google form or whatever, and then we can share it, and you could share it to those pages.
I was gonna send,
And you don't get near as many as you think.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can get,
Yeah.
you can get 40%,
You-
35 to
you'd like to
40%, you
get-
pretty
Hey,
much,
I'm surprised you get 10,
I
honestly.
think
Nah.
last time we did it, we figured it only got 28%.
yeah. that's what
I'm
I'm
shocked
saying.
that you get that much, honestly. That's good.
we'll see.
That's actually better than I thought.
So we'll work on, so that's sort of what we got coming up. We'll work on that
Hello?
survey. The CIP is coming through, so the
Uh-huh.
CIP committee will be meeting as well. And a joint meeting with the board. So we got a lot coming up
I just
in
turned.
the
Yeah.
next few months. And we probably have a rezoning coming from the company that bought Amelia.
What you found wrong?
So that's another thing for the planning commission in January. They have some, they
Uh-huh.
bought, some of the property they bought is residential and they want to zone it to
Okay.
industrial.
Last time they did it.
Okay.
That's,
Survey month.
Thank you.
that's what we've done through before. I don't know if your,
I-
if your questions are still available, if you go back and review or whatever.
And he did something,
Yeah.
they did something cool last time. They sent it to all the high school juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
So we'll do that again. And I think that's a good group to poll, the juniors and seniors, because they're about to.
And I would make sure,
And I
like you
think-
said, make sure some of the questions aren't so vague. Like you said, we already know that
Yeah.
everybody wants rural. We, like, maybe try to make sure some of them are
Specific.
a little more focused.
I think when the school one was a little more specific as to what
Pretty-
type of work would you be interested in or something like that?
Survey to the schools.
Yeah.
They were both done for survey month. County. You can go back and review those. They still-
And the-
that whole pile of what?
The school does the same when they send out surveys. They have a different one for teachers versus students versus parents, you know, because you obviously are getting
Different
different,
questions,
yeah.
So that's what's coming up. Any thoughts?
I have one thought I'd like to plug in, I don't know if it's here or the CIP, I'm not on the CIP. But I've heard in the conversations a lot with contractors in Amelia. We are sitting here talking about promoting businesses in Amelia. Every project County of Amelia does, somebody else from outside of the county will come in and do it. And I don't know who to talk about, and it usually comes from that CIP plan. I don't know if we need to advertise it a little better, that it's not getting known, but got a lot of stuff going on in the last 15, 20 years that people in this county can do, but we're having people outside of the county come in and do it.
And I mean, obviously, you know, that comes down to bid, right? I mean, that's.
Well, let's
it's what
find
it
out
comes
where
down
to
to.
be,
Yeah.
because it can be like an air conditioning unit on top
So,
of the middle school.
They are advertised. Mhm. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Southern Air has got a contract, and Mark Baum don't never hear nothing about it. I don't never hear nothing about setting nothing with a crane, got them sitting right here. How can they beat them? You've got a building that you want built, you got Ronnie Hancock. How can you get somebody to come in here and build something cheaper? And where is it getting advertised?
In the paper, I see them almost every time.
I don't never see.
We-
And we've got 20-some million dollars probably coming up, then I doubt if you see all that 20-some million.
Now, I know what you're saying, school versus the county. I definitely see the county
You
ones,
might see
like
a paving job for
Yeah.
a fire department. something.
You're right.
We just got a
the
lot.
actual school ones, yeah.
I'm saying we've got contractors here in Amelia.
Yeah.
A bid's a bid if you're high, you're high, but I think the county people
Right.
need to be able to have the opportunity to bid on this thing.
Like the person doing the signs, they're local, I found out. The person you got doing the village signs.
How, they did the same times as EDA. Like
I hear this a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot. If you see something going on, it really did. It hurt my feelings when I seen some units getting set on the middle school last year. I've never heard nothing about it. Southern Air just came in here and done the job. They got whoever they wanted to do the setting of it with the crane. And
Oh, well, yeah, Southern Air got the
and,
job.
and then you got Bourne. He could have could have at least given a price. Me and him could have gone and got a price.
We'll make sure to work. on
Yeah,
it.
But
That's a good.
I
point.
think like each department needs to go out here and see. If they need seed for grass, ought to have opportunity to bid it because you're right here.
yeah, I don't know, cause I mean, I feel like I've seen them in the paper, like saying like, hey, we need a new roof on Head Start or whatever. You know, that's just an example, but school wise, I don't know where they go.
County. If
But I've
this
seen the county ones. I've seen
You're
their.
talking about promoting, whether it's the school, the county. If it comes from a taxpayer's dollar, I think we've got a lot of resources here in Amelia. You ought to have opportunity. I didn't see how, and I'm always look, I'm on
Yeah, I was gonna say
Dollar
Eva, but they don't
Report,
have to go through Eva.
stuff.
They don't have to go through Eva.
And I would love to be able, it doesn't hurt my feelings if I'm high.
Yeah.
At least I had the chance to bid.
I see
But
what
I
you're saying.
will
You're not even
bid,
seeing them.
You know, Daryl Goff will call me up and say, would you bid this? So he can get a price to put into that CIP plan.
Uh-huh.
Ask you for it.
Uh-huh.
But
But
that's
then,
just an example. I'm not saying he wouldn't give it to me,
Right.
but that's how they come up with their numbers.
yeah,
They're pulling the people, but
Yeah.
if they get approved to be able to put in a swimming pool, an
Yeah.
Olympic-sized swimming pool, I think the first person they ought to call is Pool Wizard because they're local. And after that point, you can call whoever you want, but I think if it's in Amelia, if the county is buying it, they got business license and they got the ability to know who's to just get a price.
well, I think there should be a procurement there. I know it comes down to procurement because I do a lot of state federal work. And so I know personally, we can't just call people and say, hey, because there's rules about that. But what you can do is make sure that they're seeing them. So like they can tell you, this is where we post, whether it's Fed Biz Ops, which it's not, but it's not EVA. They don't use
No.
EVA because they're not state. So whatever it is though, they should say that way you can get a login and a notification that every time something comes up for Amelia County, you should be getting that email. And I didn't realize that wasn't being done.
If the county wants to sell
That's
that building
crazy.
next door, and
Yeah.
they got a Remax to put a sign up, how would that make you feel? And here you are sitting there trying to.
Happens every day.
Happens every day.
But I'm just saying, you hear it a lot up here at Music, the Dog State, the contractor saying, I don't know why they don't spend money in Amelia. We're here, we're sitting here talking about trying to promote Amelia.
Well, I will say it came up recently. What was it? Somebody commented on Facebook recently.
We don't.
That something small was done. And I can't remember what it was now. Something the county did and people were fussing and said, why in the world didn't they just use it in the county?
That's just, I don't know if you can help me with
And I
that or
can't
not.
remember what
I'll do my
Talk
best.
to them and just
Yep.
see, I think
It's
it's
a great
keep up
point.
all your
Well,
time.
we
Yeah.
can,
Great point.
Well, I
we
know
can-
the school board took a lot of flack when they
explain it to them when they're
did
here.
they did their yearly retreat. They do it in Chesterfield every year. And they go to a Chesterfield venue with money and all that. And a lot of
They don't
folks,
know about it.
a lot of
They don't
folks,
or-
a lot of
I
folks
can't
fussed
talk
about
to
that.
Wilkerson or
Said,
anything. He's going-
why aren't you
he'll get
doing
on
an
Google.
Amelia business? Like we've got businesses.
You know?
that get- But
Something like that. I think.
part of me is like, I know why they're not.
It's
It's